Metro on WDET. I'm Cary Jr. II. In Detroit, there's constant movement. People coming and going or staying by insistence or force. But sometimes the deepest currents of change live deeper beneath the surface. This idea is central to tonight's StoryFest at the Detroit Opera House. The theme is No Small Wind is Blowing. It draws on the currents of migration, transition, and the unseen forces that change our lives and the communities we live in. The festival began as an experiment last fall, selling out the Detroit Film Theater. The storytellers included poets, residents, and WDET journalists whose stories rarely share the same stage. This year, StoryFest expands in size and ambition. At its center is a question. Can stories help us see each other with nuance in a gray area rather than one painted in black and white? The festival's curators have spent years exploring the power of live storytelling, and they join me now. Tay Glass and McArdle Hankin of Back Pocket Media, welcome to the program.
Cary, so good to be here. That was a lovely intro. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Shout outs to our team, our production team, and Robin Vincent as well. She's really one of the great writers, hosts on this show.
And she was a great storyteller last year.
Right. She was a storyteller last year. Absolutely. I want to start with Tay. So StoryFest started as a live journalism experiment. What problem or absence did it set out to address?
Yeah, so the project emerged out of grad school. We were studying journalism. I had a background in theater, and it just felt like sometimes the news was lacking personal experience. It's so easy sometimes in, modern society to just scroll past a person's byline. It's a little bit harder to do that on the radio when you're hearing voices like yours, Cary Jr. But yeah, we wanted to bring reporters' personal experience back into the news and make the news feel a little bit more fun, a little bit more artful, a little bit more personal. And so we decided to try this live journalism thing. And initially we're doing it one-to-one with newsrooms, but eventually it folded into StoryFest, which is collaborative at its core. We feature great storytellers from WDET, as well as other local publications, radio, print, what have you.
Wow. I wonder, I'm curious to know if there was any hesitation or timidness from newsrooms at first, because the idea of putting a personality first is like forbidden in journalism. It's something we don't do. It's changed a little bit, in today's, but I'm wondering like what that initial pitch was like.
Yeah, especially when you're working with sort of old school journalists, there's definitely a little bit of pushback. But we believe that like showing your personality, where you're coming from, how you feel, and your personal experience actually informs the way that you see the world and the way that you tell stories. And so we think it adds a lot to the way the news is told. And we're telling stories that are from journalists, but also community stories as well. Especially with StoryFest, we lean into presenting the arts. And so we'll have music and dance. It's storytelling in a variety of forms, for sure.
And McArdle, so Detroit's first edition last year sold out pretty quickly. What did that response reveal about what people are hungry to hear?
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, people paying money to see local journalism and journalists on stage. I think it showed us that people, despite perhaps how it may appear from the outside, are actually quite eager to have intimate experiences and to pay attention. Something we hear a lot about right now is the attention economy and how we're distracted all of the time. And one really amazing thing about being in a dark theater is that you can't pull out your phone. You can't look at the TV or make a phone call. You really have to just pay attention on what's in front of you. And when you have that experience in this quiet space, and it's like the person on stage is talking directly to you, you do walk away feeling something quite different than any other medium.
It is it sounds like deliberate environment too, because it almost sucks you in, the stillness of the environment. The darkness, you pull out your phone, you're going to risk a lot of glares That's going to be really obvious. You don't want to be that person in the room. So it's something about you all creating that environment that really sucks you into it. Were there moments during that inaugural festival that kind of shifted your understanding of Detroit or of what storytelling can be?
Oh, man, we were so pleased to see. I mean, I think we knew that Detroit had a lot of talent and incredible stories, and we just had to find them. And we were proven right with that assumption. This year, we see that again. I think every year we're surprised at how many great stories we have to choose from, and that's one of the hardest parts that parts of our job as curators is to narrow it down into a 90-minute show. We'd love to have a lot more storytellers because the range here in Detroit is so big. You have humor, you have suspense, you have injustice that needs reckoning with. There's a lot of different themes that we can pull on, and a lot of great individual stories that we're able to feature. I think because of the place that Detroit is.
Tay, the theme, "No small wind is blowing." The phrase suggests motion and stability. Why that theme? Why now?
Yeah, we wanted to focus on migration this year as sort of a central topic. And we think of migration in a variety of ways. Of course, there's this broader national political conversation going on around migration, and we're certainly telling stories about the immigration and emigration of people into and out of America, into and out of Detroit or Michigan. But we also think that migration is just a great vehicle for stories in general. Like any good story is about a journey of a person starting in some place and going someplace new, maybe even ending up back where they started. And so we want to tell stories not only about the migration of people, but the migration of ideas, the migration of culture, of food. We want to tell stories about personal journeys that folks have gone on. And so you'll get a lot of different takes on that theme of migration at this year's show.
How do you, I'm going back to you, McArdle, how do you make a story feel right for this particular moment? And how do you know when it's right and how do you know when it's wrong when you all are making up the event?
I don't think there's a perfect answer to this. I think a lot of it is, does the story have a character that we want to learn more about, whether that's the person telling the story or someone featured in it? Is there someone for us to root for or against, right? And is that person complicated? Are they not just, a villain or a hero? Can they live somewhere in between? I think that's what makes for a really interesting story is when we don't have a neat narrative. That's when the audience gets challenged and they get a little bit uncomfortable. And for us, that's really exciting. I think we're also not trying to pick just stories that we think are going to be audience favorites. When we say the best stories from our city on one stage, which is one of our taglines, I think the word best, is sort of up for interpretation. And for us, it's the best fit on stage at that night. Can we get a variety of perspectives? Can we hit the theme from different angles? And can we get people to feel things? If people walk away really, really loving stories and maybe really hating or feeling uncomfortable with one or two of them, that's okay with me. As long as you're feeling something. If you walk away and you don't remember, you're not bruised by the experience, then I think that would be a failure. But if you walk away, thinking about something a little bit different and having an experience where there's some emotional resonance, to me, that's sort of what makes it a win.
Is there ever a concern to either of you, Tay or McArdle, whoever wants to take this one first, that giving a theme or providing a theme to the writers might shift the narrative or kind of shape their stories too much and might restrict them in their ability to tell their own experiences?
Yeah, not too much of a concern. I think actually having a focus can kind of be a benefit in some ways because we've all got a million stories to tell. And so if you walk into sort of a pre-interview with a journalist or community storyteller or what have you and say, hey, tell me an interesting story, they've got, a lifetime of experience to pull on. And so sometimes having that focus like, hey, we're thinking about migration, we're thinking about wind, we're thinking about personal journeys that people have gone on, that can be a nice way to at least focus the conversation and find something that's meaningful for them.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, I think it's a really beautiful question, Cary. that even if people have told a specific story before, when you give them a thematic direction, it allows them to tell that story in a different way. That's right. You get a pull on different angles. It's almost like, a director saying, well, actually, let's shoot it from this angle. What does that do to the shot, right? It puts something else into focus. And so I think that's what we're trying to do, is just kind of like refocus maybe a story that someone's already told. And a lot of the stories are things that have been published in print or in radio. But the story that they tell on stage is completely different from whatever had been originally published.
It definitely, I feel like, highlights or elevates the creative lens you two have when you describe, but when you cultivate this list of stories. So you're listening to The Metro on 101.9 WDET, and if you're just joining us, we're talking about StoryFest, which is happening tonight at the Detroit Opera House. My guests are two of the event's curators, Tay Glass and McArdle Hankin. Now back to you, Tay. When does a story help people see each other differently? What conditions have to exist for that to happen?
That's such a beautiful question. And I think that's the power of journalism and of hearing somebody else's voice and hearing them compose their thoughts sort of in real time. It's one of the reasons that I fell in love with radio and podcasts as a medium, because you can hear a person think and feel in this really intimate way. And the same is true, I think, for live storytelling. You're getting somebody up on stage and they're sharing these really beautiful, intimate, funny experiences that they've had in this really candid, intimate way that, McArdle mentioned earlier, it feels sometimes like you're talking one-to-one in a dark room. And that the storyteller, despite the fact that they're speaking to maybe 1,000, 2,000 people, they're talking to you. And there's something really beautiful about that.
Does empathy kind of have its limits? Is it often treated as like the story's end goal, when maybe empathy could be too soft or insufficient?
Yeah. Well, I think this is one reason I think people do get empathy fatigue.
Yeah.
We can't have 7 heart-wrenching stories in a row. It doesn't work as a program. People need a break. And it's important to hit the full emotional spectrum, I think. And so, as many really important stories as there are to tell in Detroit or in any city, as many social issues as we'd like to highlight, there is sort of a ceiling on how many we can put into one show. And I think it's also really important to think about joy, right? For us, humor is a great way of building empathy. If we can get someone to be funny or to use humor as a device in a really hard story, it makes them all the more human. I really do think that laughter and crying, tragedy, and celebration and jokes are really kind of closely tied together. So if we can weave that line, I think that's a way we can sort of achieve empathy.
I'm going to give you both a hard task, and maybe we can only have time for one. I've got about 30 seconds. Okay. I just want to know, ultimately, what do you hope listeners take with them when they leave the Opera House after the StoryFest this year?
I hope they see themselves. I hope they're proud of their city, of Detroit, of the beautiful voices and stories that come from this place. I also hope they hang out for this after party that we're having in the lobby with WDET's own Wajid.
Oh, nice.
Yes, that's right. I think it's a pretty incredible opportunity to get to turn the opera into a place for, a party, really. And that's what we're going to do tonight. So thank you to the opera for inviting us and letting us transform the space.
Excellent. McArdle, Hankin, and Tay Glass, thank you both for joining me on The Metro. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Cary.
The Detroit StoryFest is 8 p.m. tonight at the Detroit Opera House. Don't forget, go to WDET.org/events to buy tickets before they're all sold out. Thanks for listening to The Metro today. This is WDET FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation.